Hola a todos, estamos en directo, creo, ¿verdad? Sí, me imagino que sí. Ahora me parece que ya estamos en directo. Hola, ¿cómo estáis? Estamos aquí otra vez haciendo nuestra live, nuestra sesión en YouTube. Espero que gustéis de esta serie aquí, que va a ser algo interesante. Si tenéis preguntas, poner aquí al lado, ya sabéis cómo funciona. Yo soy Tiago, encantado de estar aquí otra vez y hoy vamos a hablar. La verdad, antes de empezar con esto, yo quiero decir que estamos con dos cosas muy interesantes, ¿vale? Una, que aquí abajo tenemos un código de descuento de hasta un 35% de descuento. Este código será válido solamente durante 3 horas después de esta live, ¿vale? Entonces, si queréis aprovechar este descuento, está aquí abajo el enlace para que podáis hacer clic y aprovechar este descuento, ¿vale? Otra cosa, también tenemos un sorteo muy bueno. Si tenéis interés y queréis competir por hasta un año de Cambly totalmente gratis, también estamos con un sorteo. Ya vamos a poner un enlace por ahí, o entonces si queréis entráis en nuestro Instagram y en el Instagram tenéis el enlace para este sorteo, ¿vale? Entonces, algo que podéis ganar hasta un año de Cambly, ¿vale? Entonces, ojo que es muy interesante. Y bueno, como ya sabéis, esto será inglés y vamos a cambiar. Si tenéis alguna pregunta, cualquier duda sobre Inglaterra como en general o cualquier otra cosa específica de Inglaterra, si queréis saber, poner aquí al lado y vamos a contestar lo máximo posible, ¿vale? Entonces, vamos al inglés y cualquier cosa, poner aquí al lado, poner un like, compartir con los amigos y ya nos veremos. So, Sophie, let's switch to English. Let's go. And how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. Much better now. I would, I would, I would say. I mean, I feel a lot of people already know a little bit of for what we do, and I know a little bit about you that we already did a lot of live sessions together. But for the ones who don't, I want you to introduce yourself a little bit for us and tell a little bit about you, your background, whatever. I mean, you already know a little bit, so feel free to talk about a little bit to introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay, so my name is Sophie. I am British and I live in London. I'm not originally from London though. I'm originally from another part of the UK called Norfolk, which is in the east of England. I've been a tutor on Cambly now, oh gosh, for a good while now. I lose track of the time. And I really enjoy being here and helping people learn English. I've mentioned in previous videos as well that I also have a lot of experience working as a tour guide in London. So I don't have as much knowledge about the rest of the UK quite as in depth as I do for London. But I've travelled around a lot of the UK. I think there is so much beauty to be seen in the UK that a lot of people miss because they don't know where these places are. Don't get me wrong, London is wonderful. London is amazing. I wouldn't still be here if I didn't think it was brilliant. But there are so many other places around the UK which are just wonderful. And I might not know the answer to all of your questions because there are a lot of places in the UK, but I can certainly do my best to answer about the places that I do know.
All right. That's interesting. And I would like to ask for everybody who is watching us that if you wanna check it out, the one that we did about London specifically, you can check it out on our YouTube channel, and then you definitely see and hear a little bit more about what Sophie could talk and tell us a little bit more about London. So it's super interesting. Look through that. It's worth it. Okay. So it's in our YouTube channel. So check that out. So as you said, we're going to talk a little bit about UK in general. So that will be interesting, and I'm quite, curious about specific things and a few cities as well. And I would like to, well, what do you have in mind, and where do you want to start? Let's say like that.
So I guess we could start with other cities in the UK. There are places which are not cities which are beautiful to go to as well, but um, cities are often easier to get to. So if you're coming just for a short stay, it might be a bit easier to go to a city, another city, than to go to one of the really rural areas. Um, I would say one of my favourite cities in the whole of the UK, other than London, is York. I'll type that in the chat just so people can see as well. York, which is in the north of England, and it's almost as though you are stepping back in time when you go to York. The streets are pretty much exactly how they would have been about 300, 400 years ago. Apart from the fact that some of the things that the shops are selling are a bit more modern and wouldn't have been around back then. I've got a little picture. I'm going to just share my screen and show you an example. Here we go. So here we've got an example of a street in York. And you can see how they've got these old buildings that hang over into the roads, which used to be what pretty much most cities look like.
It seems like they are almost falling apart. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, some of them do look like they're about to fall into each other. I'm sure they're completely safe, but they look like they could fall over at any minute. And a lot of the streets around York are very similar to this, where they have these very old buildings that are the style that we used to have a few hundred years ago, and we don't build houses like this anymore. So there's only a few places in the country where you can still see this really traditional style of building houses. And York is probably the easiest place to get to that still has this style.
Yeah, it looks so charming. I mean, it's beautiful street. Let me ask you something. It's the same thing. I was looking through here, and as you know, I do my little research, and as we were talking before, I stepped out one city that's called Yorkshire. It's the same city, or no, or I'm just because it says here like the Robin Hood's Bay and Yorkshire, and I'm not sure if it's the same one.
So Yorkshire or Yorkshire, you can pronounce it both ways.
Okay.
My accent, I say Yorkshire, but some accents say Yorkshire.
Okay. So
I feel very strange saying Yorkshire.
So let correct me. How is the best way to say it, to pronounce it?
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire.
Basically, if you're British, you would say Yorkshire. If you're American, you would say Yorkshire.
Okay. So Yorkshire.
But I'm British, so it sounds very strange saying Yorkshire to me.
Okay, so Yorkshire. Yeah. Okay.
So Yorkshire is a county. So the whole of the UK is split into lots of small sections called counties. I don't know how many counties, but there's a lot. I'll find a map actually, just to give you an idea of the size of these counties. I know there's quite a few good ones. Here we go. I'll just share and show you. Okay, so here you can see, this is actually the UK and Ireland on this map. Okay. But you see all these different coloured patches. They are all different counties. Wow. So this is the one that I'm from, Norfolk, over here.
So just for the people to have an idea, show where in the map where is London and the difference for the people to know a little bit more.
So London is not shown on this map because London is not technically a county, but it's basically here. Let me zoom in. Hopefully I can zoom in quite far. Yeah, so you can just about see London written there. It's essentially, if I draw a circle with my mouse, essentially it's there.
Okay. Yeah.
It's very far south in the country compared to what you might think.
Yeah.
Um,
Just to have
so
an
then
idea and the people to have
sorry.
like an overview of the where is London and where it's the other counties and other stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, London is all the way down here. And then this big pink one is Yorkshire.
Ah, okay.
Yorkshire, I believe, is classed as the biggest county in the whole of the UK. And you can see it is quite big compared to a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
So Yorkshire is the county. York is the city that the county is named after. So it's literally the Shire of York, the area around York. There are other cities in Yorkshire, but York is the main city. So yeah, a lot of the rest of Yorkshire is also really, really beautiful. There are so many like little places to explore in Yorkshire. I would particularly recommend, if you're not going to York, but you want to see Yorkshire, go to the Dales. The Yorkshire Dales are stunningly beautiful. They're an area of natural land, and again, it might be easiest for me to show you a picture to fully appreciate really how beautiful they are. I'm just going to share my screen again. Oh.
Okay, feel free.
There we go. So you can see all of these pictures show the Dales.
Wow. Beautiful.
It's just these beautiful rolling green landscapes with really traditional farmhouses, like you can see here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of farms in the Dales because it's really good land for rearing animals. So there's a lot of farms in the Dales, but yeah, it kind of gives you an idea of the type of landscape you got there.
Looks beautiful. And let me ask you something. I was watching a series called Vikings, and in this series, there's one at a specific time in this series, the Vikings went down from I don't know where they're from, and they went to England, and they actually conquered a city called York. So could be this city, and it's the same. It's old as the Vikings and all the stuff.
Yeah, that is the same York.
Interesting.
Essentially the Vikings conquered the north of the country first, and then gradually came further south. So York was very much a stronghold of theirs for a very long time. I think York is even older than the Vikings, but I could be wrong. I know it's certainly a very, very old place.
Yeah, well, might be, and they already had a lot of. I mean, as I was looking in the series, they already had like a very big infrastructure, and it was kind of a very big city at the time. So I can imagine that it was a lot older than the Vikings are. I mean, it's interesting actually to imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of places in the UK are really, really old. Obviously, London. I go back to London, but London goes all the way back to the Roman period. And there are a few other towns around the area which go all the way back to the Romans. There are some newer places as well, but most places can trace their history back a very, very long time, which is why we've got quite a lot of really, really old buildings in the UK.
And that's good. As we talked in the last session that we did talking about London, it's the same for all England, right? They have to maintain this the natural aspect of the buildings, the infrastructure and everything. They cannot change it, right? And the rest of the country is the same, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes things can be different in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. Um, then they're not generally, but technically, each of the four nations within the UK have certain things that they can control. So if one of those nations decided that they wanted to change things and not protect these buildings, they could. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
At the moment, all of them generally want to protect these really old buildings and make sure they last so that future generations can appreciate them.
Definitely, that's totally true. Let me before we continue, let me ask you one thing that I just saw here, and I think it's interesting to ask you. Laura, she just asked that she said counties. What is it? So she wanted to understand a little bit more about what is counties, and if you can talk a little bit more about these four nations inside the UK that sometimes people don't necessarily know a little about it. So those two things I think it's interesting for us to know as well.
Okay, so I'll start with the four nations and then I'll go on to the counties. Okay. So it's a little bit complicated because the UK is a country, but the UK consists of four other countries. So those countries are England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. It's very strange how we are a country made up of countries, but all four of those countries are still an individual country that is just part of a bigger union of countries.
It's kind of the European Union in some way. Let's say like that.
Yeah, it's strange because in some ways, yes, it's like the European Union. We are a union of four countries, but it's also slightly different because sometimes all those countries act as one nation. So, for example, when the UK was part of the European Union, we were just part as one country. So we were the United Kingdom, one country within the European Union. But you may have noticed when it comes to playing certain sports, such as football, suddenly we split down into our individual nations. So we have the England football team, we have the Wales football team, Scotland football team. They go down to the individual nations. We don't have a UK football team. So it's very strange. It's a very unique situation. But yes, we are quite literally four countries within one country. In terms of counties, essentially you have the whole of the UK, so all four of those nations, and each of those nations is split into smaller sections. Now, the history of this is essentially that large sections of land used to belong to the upper classes. So quite a lot of the land still does belong to the upper classes, but it really used to be that a lot of it was. So my history knowledge on this area is not as good as other areas, but it's to do with certain sections of land belonging to certain upper class people, but the names have just stuck. And now each county is its own little area as well. They take care of certain things, such as making sure that all the street lamps are working, making sure that the roads are safe to drive on. They're responsible for making sure all the children go to school and all have a place at school. So they're almost like little tiny parts of the UK, and they have some control over what they can do, but they are not quite the same as a whole country. They're just little sections of the country.
Okay, so yeah, so putting some time, It's like, so Laura, I don't know where you're from, but let us know where you're from, so maybe we can give some examples about. And but let's put it in a way. A lot of people are more familiar with the United States. Sometimes it's the same as, I mean, California and Texas. It's just, the countries, they split the countries in parts. So the states, and so it's like that, right? It's the same.
Yeah, pretty much. Apart from our counties are much smaller than American states. But yeah, it's the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
One big country split into lots of much smaller sections.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So yeah, I think it's much easier to put everything right in, because if you get just the federal government to make it all the decisions, it's quite difficult. So that's one of the reasons that they split these as well. I think it's easier to manage the country in some way.
Yeah, exactly. The national government wouldn't really care, say, if there was a tree whose roots were disrupting the road and coming up in the road. The national government wouldn't care. But the local council for that county, the local county, they care, and they will look after all of the things that need to be looked after to make sure people can live their normal lives and can live comfortably.
That's true. And well, what else do you think it's an interesting play? I mean, we already know that Yorkshire.
Yes.
it's kind of difficult for me to explain that. So Yorkshire, it's the biggest county and one of the most interesting. I just looked at it. It's the Robin Hood's city. So I think it's super interesting. What else do you think it's interesting to share and for us to know about England or the UK in general?
So I guess one of the other places that a lot of people have heard of but maybe don't know much about is Stonehenge. And I'll type that in the chat so people can read that as well. Stonehenge. So first of all, a henge is like a big circle made up of upright stones. I think you can get wooden ones as well. So sometimes it was big wooden sticks all in a circle in the ground. Stonehenge is a particularly famous one. I'm going to get a picture up as well so you can see.
Yeah.
I think some people will probably know what I'm talking about as soon as they see the pictures, because it's quite a famous place. Here we go. So this is Stonehenge. So you see what I mean by the big stones sticking up out of the ground in a big circle. This one you can really see the circle.
Yeah.
Obviously, not all of the stones are still standing upright.
Yes.
Yes. And also with Stonehenge, you can see these big stones across the top, and some of those stones, where you can see here, some of those stones have now fallen onto the ground. So part of the structure has completely collapsed, and part of it is still upright. So the truth is that we really aren't 100% sure why these exist. So there's quite a lot of these henges across the country, especially the southern part of the country. And there's a lot of research that's been done to try and find out what these are. We know that they date back a very, very long time. So we're talking Stone Age times.
Wow.
A very long time, which is why we also don't have any records of exactly what they were made for, because this was pre-recording of human history in the UK, or what would later become the UK. So we just don't know. A lot of people think that it's something to do with the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So the summer solstice being the longest day of the year, and the winter solstice being the shortest day of the year. Because of the way that the sun aligns itself through some of the stones. So on the summer solstice, the sun is directly between two of the largest stones. And people think that it was a really ancient religious ritual, that people would come to Stonehenge for the summer solstice to celebrate. Because in ancient pagan religions, which were around in at that time, summer solstice was a huge part of the religion. It was the event of the year. So nowadays, Christmas is the biggest religious holiday in the UK. Of course, it's not the only one, but it's the biggest. All the way back then, summer solstice was the big celebration. So we think that it's something to do with celebrating summer solstice. But sadly, we will probably never know for certain, because it's just too long ago in history.
Wow. And if we want to visit this place, you have to buy tickets, or it's just go there. They have some control over it. How it works?
Yeah, so you need to buy a ticket to enter. They do also have a lot of information there as well. They have a visitor centre. So if you want to learn more, then you can. They're generally very happy to talk more about the place, because a lot of the people who work there are very passionate about the place, and they know more about it than I do. And there are different ways to get there if you do want to go. If you are coming to London, there are a lot of coaches that will take you all the way to Stonehenge, because it's quite a well-known place. People want to travel. You can drive there as well. So you can either hire a car, or if you're coming from mainland Europe and you're getting the Eurostar over, you can drive your own car. Going by train is not so much of an option. There aren't really any train stations very close by. If you did want to go by train, you would have to get a taxi from a train station to Stonehenge. So really, coach or car are your best options for getting there.
Okay. Yeah, looks quite far. Far away a little bit. So it's don't have train. It's kind of complicated. So get a car, everybody. If you want to go visit, get your own car. I think it's one of the best options for you. And it's super interesting. I think it's amazing. This place is amazing. I really want to go visit this place one day. One day, okay. And let me ask you a little bit. I'm seeing here a few questions, and there's some that is kind of a general ones, and I would not necessarily want to go in these right now, but I would ask you one thing. Actually, I'll ask this one that's interesting, from Griselda. So, hi Griselda, and she asked about where's the best place for biking in the UK? Do you know a little bit of anything about it?
Ooh. So it depends on whether you want a city that's good for biking, or whether you want countryside that's good for biking. If you want to go to a city, Cambridge. Cambridge is where you want to go. And I'll type that in the chat so people can see how that's spelled. Cambridge is a city that a lot of people have heard of, mostly because of the university that's there. But Cambridge is such a cyclist-friendly city. In all honesty, it often feels as though there are more cyclists than car drivers, because there really aren't that many cyclists. There are safe cycle lanes everywhere. You are often given priority as a cyclist over cars. So I would definitely recommend, if you want a city that's good for cycling, go to Cambridge. And not to mention that Cambridge has a lot of really interesting places to go as well.
Definitely. I put it in my list here to ask about Cambridge, because I think it's a lot of people know about the university, as you said, but I think it's in a very charming city, and it looks beautiful as well. So
Yeah, it's stunningly beautiful, and I've been there quite a few times myself. It also has quite nice shopping if you're interested in shopping. But in terms of beauty as well, it is absolutely beautiful. In terms of countryside that's good for cycling, I'm actually going to recommend the part of the country that I'm from. So I mentioned earlier that I'm from Norfolk. Very, very specifically, I'm from a part of the country called the Fens. The Fens is a small part of the country in the east of England, and the Fens is completely flat. When I say completely flat, I mean flat. Actually, I will even get some pictures to show you exactly what I mean by it's flat. Oh, that's a good one. Here we go. Just going to share my screen again. So it's completely flat. There are no hills in the Fens.
Yeah.
That's because it used to all be underwater. It used to all be marshland, but then it was drained, and now the land is just flat, as you can see like this.
Wow.
But there are some really beautiful views, and it's very, very easy to cycle there because you don't have to cycle up any hills.
Yeah.
It's also one of the few places in the country that I will actually cycle. Most places I don't like cycling in the UK. I will cycle when I go back to visit my parents who still live there.
Ah, that's nice. That's nice, and looks beautiful as well. And definitely good place to cycle. So yeah, definitely. And I would like to just. I'm seeing here interesting things. Actually, Griselda actually sent her a message that I actually don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I will ask because she sent it here, and she asked, "What does mean the Jack flag? Do you know what is that? I don't know."
Oh, sorry, the audio cut right at the crucial moment.
Oh,
could you repeat the question, Thiago?
What does mean the Jack flag? Do you know what is that? I don't know what is that.
It's the Union Jack. Is the full name, and I'm just going to give two names and explain the difference. It's also known as the Union flag, and this is the flag for the United Kingdom. So you know where it's got the red cross and the blue background and the white cross in the background. That's the Union flag or the Union Jack.
I didn't know about
now,
it.
the difference is that the Union flag is when it's on land. It's the Union Jack when it's at sea. I don't know why they have two different names based on whether it's on land or at sea. But yeah, that's the name of the UK's flag.
I didn't know that Jack flag. I didn't know about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, this is a bit of a strange name. I'm not quite sure where it comes from.
Yeah, and it's interesting to know that they have different names where, I mean, if you're in the sea or in the land. So yeah, definitely interesting. So thanks for the question, Griselda. I didn't know about it. Just learned something new as well. And we just received a question here that it's from a city that I think it's an amazing city as well. And I would ask a little bit about this city as well. And she said, Gabriela asked about if you know or anything, or if you can give us some tips about Liverpool.
So Liverpool is one of the few cities I have never been to. I know that it's a really nice place to go, and it's very easy to get to. But yeah, I've never been. I've been to Manchester, which is nearby before.
It's nearby. It's nearby. Yeah.
But Liverpool, I've not not been to before.
Yeah, I think Liverpool
can't
it's a place where if you love the Beatles, I think you definitely have to go to Liverpool, and
Yeah,
you will find the statues, you will find, I mean, things that they went, or the bar that they played in the first time. I was in Liverpool, so I because I went there to just get to know the sense of the Beatles and all the stuff. So it's definitely worth to go there. And I mean, I went specifically to see the cave and the street where they cross it, and the street where they cross it, the statue that they have in the port there. So it's interesting. So it's a beautiful place to go. It's definitely worth to visit Liverpool. Yeah, and Manchester as well. Manchester, I think it's an amazing place as well.
Yeah, Manchester. Because I have been to Manchester. Manchester is lovely. Also, what I would just say generally about that area of England, like the northwest area, that's kind of close to the Welsh border. That's generally quite good for music. There's been a lot of well-known bands who've come from that area. So, of course, the Beatles are probably the most well-known to have come out of that area. But if music, and especially listening to new artists, is something that you really enjoy doing, London's a good place to go, of course, but the northwest around Liverpool and Manchester is also a really good place to go. We've had a lot of good musicians come from that area.
Yeah, I have a friend from Liverpool, and he said that Liverpool is a city that is well known, not just Liverpool, but that area, as you were saying, that it's known about the creative side. They are kind of known as like a kind of rebels, and they like the creative style of living. So I don't know. He was telling me that. So it makes sense about these kind of things related to music. So interesting.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. It's I don't know what it is about that area specifically of the country, but it is just a hub of creativity. So yeah, I've always imagined that Liverpool would be wonderful to go to, based largely on how nice Manchester is to go to, and knowing that there's a lot of similarities between the cities. But yeah, I would definitely recommend a visit to that area of England generally.
Yes, definitely. I wanna ask you, because I have a lot of curiosity about this place, and this area actually is not specifically just one place, because I never been and I really want to go there. It's in Scotland. Do you know anything? What you can share about Scotland and cities, or I mean, what you can share with us about Scotland?
So Scotland is beautiful. I say that about all parts of the UK, but Scotland has a lot of natural beauty, and there's a lot that you can see there depending on where you go. So the place that a lot of people go to is Edinburgh. I think that's probably the most famous place in Scotland, especially if you are into theatre or comedy. Edinburgh in August is the place to be, because we have a massive festival. It's called the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I'll just type that as well so you can see that. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and for pretty much the entire month of August, the streets are just overtaken with tourists who've come to see the shows, performers trying to promote their shows. Pretty much every space available has a play in it, or a comedy show, or a musical, or something creative going on inside it. So if that's what you're really into, then definitely go to Edinburgh during August. But book your accommodation early. you will not get a place if you book in the middle of July.
Yeah.
You need to book it several months in advance.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. In terms of other parts of Scotland, you've got generally the area around Loch Ness. I don't know if people have heard of Loch Ness. It's quite famous in the UK, but I'm not sure how famous it is outside of the UK. Loch Ness is a massive, massive lake. And the area around this lake, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's worth going just to see the scenery. But there is also a legend around this lake that there is an ancient monster that lives in the lake called the Loch Ness Monster.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I already heard about it. Yeah.
Yes. And there's a little centre you can go to which has all different information about the legends of this monster, people who have claimed to have photographed the monster or to have seen the monster, videoed it even sometimes. And it's, regardless of whether you do or don't believe that there is a monster, it's still worth going. Just to experience the buzz of the place.
Yes, and you can like swim. Do you have people have courage to swim in the lake?
Yeah, it's very strange because they have a lot of photographs there of what could be some sort of creature. It's not definitive, but it could be something. So there's a lot of mystery around. Does it exist? Doesn't it exist? It's a brilliant legend, and as I said, the area itself is also really beautiful. So even if you think that's silly, there's no monster there, go anyway for the scenery because it's beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's super interesting. These all like the whole story, and actually, if you put it like on YouTube and all those stuff, you can actually see a lot of people like videos and photographs and a lot of stuff. As you're saying, it's definitely interesting. And even if you don't believe it, it's definitely worth going there to, I mean, see for you with your own eyes, see what happens, and swim a little bit if you have courage. You swim a little bit in the lake.
I have been to Loch Ness, and it really is different actually being there compared to just watching about it in videos. There's a different atmosphere. And even people who really don't believe, you kind of see people thinking, oh, I might look just in case. Everybody has to look. Everybody has to look and think, but what if I do see something in this lake? But yeah, it's gorgeous, gorgeous part of Scotland, and a really interesting myth.
Definitely. And one other place that now I have one of my best friends living there, and it was one of the cities that I was actually when I was deciding to move to the United States or to England. The United Kingdom actually. I was split into California or Dublin in Ireland. I was kind of mixed. I was not sure about the place that I want to go. At the end, I decided to go to California because I surfed there, so I decided to go there because there was better waves there. So it's but Dublin, it's a place that in Ireland in general. So I would ask Phil. Before we start, actually, you say that it's the North Ireland and in Ireland. There's kind of a difference in that. Can you like kind of explain a little bit about it? This part of the United Kingdom.
So this is also a little bit complicated. So you have the island spelt like this because they sound very similar in my accent. You have the island of Ireland, the island of Ireland, and the very top eastern corner is Northern Ireland. So I'm going to get a map as well just to demonstrate that. Yeah. One moment. Here we go. Just getting the screen share. Okay, so here you can see this little orange section is Northern Ireland.
Okay.
The rest of the country, this green section, is the Republic of Ireland. All of this country is Ireland, but you have Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. The Republic of Ireland is not part of the United Kingdom. So it's very complicated because it is two countries that are both called Ireland. One of them is also part of the United Kingdom. One of them is completely separate. There is a very, very long history as to why that is that I could get into, but that would take up another probable hour to explain that. But yeah, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, although they are both Ireland, they are two separate countries, and only Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom.
So have you ever been there?
I have been to the Republic of Ireland. I have not been to Northern Ireland. Essentially, to put a little bit of history to it, for quite a few decades in the 20th century, there was a lot of how to put this, aggression in certain areas of Northern Ireland, and it was known as the Troubles. And so, for when I was very, very young, it kind of wasn't so safe for people to go to certain areas in Northern Ireland. Now it's quite different. Now Northern Ireland is a wonderful place to go, but for a lot of people living in other parts of the UK, it was a bit concerning to potentially visit there. So it's only been as I've been older that I feel, I should probably go, but I've not had the time and the money at the same time to go and visit. But the Republic of Ireland, I have been to. I've not been to Dublin. I've been to another part called Cork, which I will type in the chat. Cork is quite a rural part of the Republic of Ireland. Again, very, very beautiful area. I'll get that up on images as well to show you what that looks like, because it's quite a rural area. Oh, of course, now it's only showing me the most urban part. There is an urban centre to Cork, but a lot of it is rural. There we go. Okay, I'll share my screen now. So this is what most of Cork looks like. This really rural place. There's a lot of coastline in Cork. This map also shows you exactly where it is. It's this green section here, or really dark green. That's where Cork is.
Wow,
and
beautiful.
it was a good few years ago that I went there. I was only a child when I went to Cork, but I have been meaning to go back as an adult because I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, and it looks beautiful, and a lot of castles and stuff. So yeah, it looks beautiful. The landscape in general,
Yeah, absolutely. But to be honest, a lot of Ireland is really beautiful as well. It's not just Cork. But I think Cork is probably one of the most famous parts of the Republic of Ireland for its beauty.
And actually, since we're talking about the coast in general, and I just saw here that we received a few questions that I would put it in one. From, for example, Carlos. So hello, Carlos. He is asking, about the summer in the UK, and I saw that Nicolas, for example, he's asking which is the best beach to visit in the UK. So I would like to put these questions together, and maybe we can even like, yeah, I mean, since we're almost 1 hour, we can maybe finish in talking about the summer and which do you think is the best beach to visit, or I mean, if you have more examples about it, feel free to share it.
Yeah, so that's quite a good question to end on.
Yeah.
So in terms of summer, it's very traditional for people in the UK to go to the beaches for summer. Our beaches are not quite as warm as some other countries, even in the summer. It can still get quite hot here, but it's also not uncommon for the temperature to be quite cool some days in summer. So even if you are coming in the middle of July or the middle of August, I would just say prepare that it might be colder or rainier than you are perhaps expecting.
Okay, so let's just put it into perspective here, because sometimes it's quite... What is a cool temperature for you?
Yeah, I realise this. So I'll also say what a hot temperature is as well, just to give some context.
Okay.
So this year for the UK, it was one of the hottest years on record. And we had quite a lot of days in summer which were above 30 degrees Celsius. For us, above 30 degrees Celsius is considered a heat wave. Not just hot, a heat wave. Hot is generally in the 20s, probably 22 degrees and above. If we're looking at cool, we're probably looking at about 15 degrees down to probably about 11 degrees. Below that, you're probably just getting to cold. It's cold when you get below that. Yes. So I realise for some of the viewers here who are in hotter countries than the UK, that's probably quite cold.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, we have people from I mean, Mexico and I mean, Colombia, all those places. Sometimes the winter time can get you around, like, I don't know, 20 in the winter time. So that could be that. If you really want to go to the beach, go it, but bring your jacket with you, because you will not be as used as the British people is by your side. So
yeah, you might be lucky. You might have a day which is nearer 30 degrees, but yeah, it's less likely that you'll have a higher temperature. So just prepare if you are used to hotter climates.
I love the less likely. So
yeah. Mind you, if next year is like this year, we had a lot of days which were above 30 degrees this year. So maybe next year we will also have a lot of days above 30 degrees. But I wouldn't hope too much for it to be that warm, because it's not usually that warm in the UK.
Yeah.
In terms of the best beaches, one really important thing to note is that we have different beaches. So the UK has a lot of pebble beaches. Pebble beaches are great in some ways, but if you want to somewhere where you can relax on the sand and have something soft on your back, pebble beaches are probably not the best place to go. But in terms of which beach is my favourite, that is a good question. If I had to choose, I'm going to choose a favourite pebble beach, just because this place is one of my favourite places in the UK. And then I'll also choose somewhere with a sandy beach, for those who don't like pebble beaches.
Okay.
So my favourite place with a pebble beach is Brighton, which is in the south of the country. And Brighton is a beautiful place. It has lots of really interesting shops and cafes. It has a really famous pier. I think it's one of the most famous in the world, it's considered.
Wow.
It was really lovely to go to. But generally, if you're going to Brighton, it's not somewhere where you're going to lie down on the beach and relax.
Mm-hmm.
You're going for everything that Brighton has to offer, which is a lot, but probably not quite so much its beach. Oh gosh, it's very difficult to pinpoint one specific beach. So I think I'm just going to talk about an area rather than like one specific beach. So I would say probably, I think Cornwall. So Cornwall, I'll type that in the chat as well. Cornwall is in the southwest of the country, the very most southwestern part of England. And let me get some pictures of the beaches up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good picture. I'm going to go with this picture. So here we go. So this beach, you can see this beach, lovely sandy beaches.
I'm not. You're not saying. You're not. Now. Yes. Now it
is this better?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So you can see you've got lots of lovely sandy beaches. A lot of them are little beaches like this. You do have bigger stretches of beach as well. And just to show you Cornwall on a map, so you can kind of see. Oh, I did the same thing again. Just so you can see how much of the country it takes up.
Well, yeah.
I can only see map of Cornwall. Cornwall in UK. There we go. That should hopefully find it. There we go. So this is this little red section here. That's Cornwall. So you can see how much of Cornwall is beaches, because a lot of this coastline around Cornwall is beach.
Wow.
So if you go to Cornwall, wherever you are in Cornwall, you will be somewhere pretty close to a really nice beach.
That's nice.
It's also one of the hottest parts of the UK. Not that we have many hot parts, but if you want hotter temperatures, you're more likely to get them in Cornwall than in other parts.
That's true. That's amazing. That's so people just don't forget to write that down, because it's super important if you want to be in the hottest place in UK. So go there. And I just said that we are going to finish with that, but actually we received a question that is super nice, and maybe you can tell us the truth about it, or say if it's just an imaginary thing. And Gabriela, she just asked, is it London as rainy as people say?
For the most part, yes, London is as rainy as people say. But it's not just London, it's all of the UK. We do get a lot of rain here. I'm not sure what the exact statistics are. But yeah, my advice to anyone coming to the UK is to always have an umbrella with you. Because even if the day is beautiful, wonderful sunshine, and it's a really hot temperature, at any moment, it could change and it could suddenly become a rainy day. And then half an hour later, it will go back to being sunny.
Wow.
We have a very temperamental weather in the UK. So yes, it is very rainy here. This summer was an exception. This summer we had a lot of sunshine. But yeah, always prepare for rain if you're coming to the UK.
All right. Yeah, that was interesting. That was interesting to finish. I when I saw that question, I was like, that could be interesting. Because as it's one of the things that sometimes we have a lot of the idea as we see in movies and stuff. And I was actually I just looked, and the other day I was watching an interview with Adele, and when she was in the car, I forgot the name of the guy who was interviewing her, and it was rainy, and she was like, "Oh my god, I didn't know, I didn't want it to be rainy because people all over the world will see and think it's always raining." And she was like, "Yeah, but sometimes, yeah, it's true." So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just it is what the UK is like a lot of the time.
Uh-huh.
We're just used to it, so we don't even notice it all the time because we're so used to there being rain. But yeah, we do have nice weather as well,
Mm-hmm.
but we definitely have rain.
Right.
Definitely a lot of rain.
That's good. That's good. And I mean, we already knew a lot about things, very interesting things, and I mean, we still have a lot of things to talk about the UK, and we'll definitely talk about it more. And we definitely want to do more sessions talking about it, the interesting things, and I mean, the history and a lot of more about the UK. And but at this time, do you want to finish with saying a little bit about it? And I mean, anything that you want to share with us to finish?
Oh gosh, there's so many things I could say. I think just I give one key piece of advice. If you're coming to the UK and you want to go outside of London and see something else, is to think about what you want from that experience. Do you want another buzzing city, but that just has a different vibe to London? Do you want to go somewhere that's more traditional and that you'll be able to experience traditional British life? Do you want a peaceful countryside retreat? There are lots of those. We didn't even get into those, but there are lots of those. Do you want a beach holiday? If you want a beach holiday, Cornwall is probably your best bet. So there are lots of different experiences that you can have depending on where you go within the UK. So think about what you want before deciding where to go, because whatever you want, you will almost certainly be able to find it somewhere within the UK.
Definitely, definitely. Thanks. I mean, Sophie, one more time, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sharing all the stories with us. And it's always amazing. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And for everybody who is watching us again, we just put the link for Sophie in the description. If you want to have a class with her, just click on the link in the description. We're offering a 25% discount here, so just make sure to click on the link as well. Use that free class and the 35% discount to have a class with Sophie. So, and enjoy. You have a lot to learn. Just give us a like, and see you next week. And one more time, Sophie, thank you for having us here. And
thank you very much for having me.
We definitely have more things to talk about, and we will do more sessions about this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for inviting me, and as always, it's been lovely talking to you, Tiago.
That's nice. Thank you very much. So, guys, see you next week, and thank you for watching us, and keep an eyes on us because we're going to create more stuff. And if you have any idea, anything that you wanted to know about it, just put it here in the description, in the comments, and we will do our best to answer you, okay? So bye bye guys, see you soon, hasta luego.